Hey, could you try the microphone?
Hello. It works very well.
Could you do another audio test?
Testing the microphone.
Thank you.
It appears to work pretty well.
You want to test your audio for the Skype? Computer audio? YouTube.
There's barely internet here, though. So without much internet, with a lot of packet loss, YouTube's not working too well.
Sorry, what?
I'm getting a lot of packet loss, so I can't just pull up a YouTube video.
Oh.
There's some way to make Linux make noise.
I'll see if I can get you a cable.
I got you. Gotta remember where it is.
The version in it, it's never been done. It's like, that's something about something whenever like you change stuff. Which you really do need because it fails like every week. Oh, okay. Yes, that's, yeah, we'll keep saying it. Bring down the developers. Yeah, I think so. Or was that like 3 weeks ago? Yeah. Cool, yeah. I think that's the first time I mean, although I've been to counterculture labs a few times, but like I can't get up for doing more biology because I work in biology lab. Their stuff is cool, but I just like can't come and do that. Yeah.
You're on HDMI right now, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And there's going to be
Yeah, we're
I'm also Steven, so it's safe. Only more pass. I mean, I'm saying that.
Wow, that was easy.
There you go. I guess the audio back.
So there's only 2 more times total. Also,
It's YouTube, John Oliver. That might be it. John Oliver? I just paused it and it's still going, so you've got radio or something.
I mean, it makes people not just like looking at everything, just one example where you're hacking your game.
So the point is, she earned about $2 billion, which is a lot of money for someone who, and this is true, is an academic / acrobatic rock and roll dancer. And if you think we don't have footage of her in action, you are sorely mistaken. hardest jobs in the world is prison guard or fighter pilot. But I'd like now to put a strong word in for guys whose job is to throw Putin's birthday.
Hello? Okay, welcome to the first sudo. Can you hear me? Volume's a bit low. Rob, can you hold up? All right. Cool. Okay. So, sorry for the delay, some audio issues, but welcome to the first Sudo Room 5 Minutes of Fame. Wow. We're gonna just have people come up in whatever order they feel like they're ready. I can follow. Alan's gonna kick us off. I can follow. But just like line up over here if you're ready with your talk and you feel like going next. And we'll just keep going until we don't have any more speakers. Alan? Okay. One more thing. We're going to live stream this event. I'm not going to point the camera at anyone in the crowd. If anyone wants to speak but doesn't want to be live streamed, so just let me know before you step in front of the camera. I am going to tweet out the live stream link from twitter.com/JUUL in a second. So if you could all help by retweeting that, that would be great.
Thanks. I'm Alan. I'm going to talk about mushrooms. So this is an agaricus. It stains bright red when you cut it open, a reaction to oxygen. But there's all sorts of forms and sizes of mushrooms. There's a pseudo-diaspora. It grows under cypress. Super rare thing that I just found a couple weeks ago. The chanterelles are very delicious. And there's a witch's hat. And then there's a bunch of different earth stars. And they start off as these little balls, and they open up and kind of turn into puffball things. They're all different shapes, colors. This is Amanita ocreata, which is deadly, and then Amanita villosa, the world's most delicious edible mushroom. It's just pretty dangerous to pick. It's fruiting right now. It's endemic to California, but it looks almost exactly like Amanita ocreata, which is deadly. And then we got these green earth tongues that are really cool and super rare. And here's some stinkhorns that I found in Mexico. They start out as eggs, and then they hatch. And then here is Psilocybe cubensis, which is the only mushroom that you can find at a Grateful Dead show. But what I'm mostly working on now is these mushrooms that glow in the dark. So here is a 40-minute exposure. So this one just barely glows at all, but the edges of the gills were glowing. And when you see it in the daytime, it looks like that. And I found 15 different species of mushrooms that glow in the dark in Mexico. And I think all of them are new to science. So right now we're doing DNA sequencing at counterculture labs to get DNA sequences and upload them to GenBank. On this one, only the stem glows, not the cap. And this is the first bioluminescent mushroom I found about 4 years ago. It grows on liquid amber. Here's one where only the base of the stem glows. And then this one is really cool. This is Mycena stylobantes. And with this one, the mushroom itself does not glow, but the leaves that it's growing on do glow, with the little mushroom on the left, and the lights off. And you can see that when the mushroom colonizes the leaf, it turns the leaf a lighter color, and that's the part that glows. This is the brightest one that I found. This one is so bright that you can just hold it up to your eye in broad daylight and see that it's glowing green. And we got DNA sequences of this one as well, also unknown to science. But it's really cool looking. It's got a little bit of powder on the cap and kind of a hairy stem. And only the cap glows. And here's one that's really common right now in the Bay Area. We call it Hygrocebi flavescens. So I brought it over to counterculture labs and extracted the DNA and sequenced it. And it turned out the sequence matches nothing else in GenBank. In fact, it's really far from Hygrocebi flavescens. So it turns out it's a new species that we have in the West Coast, because that's a name from Europe. And here's another new species that we found by sequencing stuff in counterculture labs, Phytocebi nuda. Super common mushroom. It's everywhere. It's a very popular edible. Very common all over the West Coast. But when I sequenced it, it turned out it didn't match any of the European sequences at all. And it's a European name. So to do this DNA sequencing, we first extract the DNA and put the DNA into little tiny tubes. And then we set up a PCR reaction. And the PCR reaction copies the DNA, whichever gene we choose. And we choose a gene that does absolutely nothing, because a gene that does absolutely nothing is very useful for identification. So the PCR is done on ice, so it doesn't start reacting, so there's ice box there. And then it goes into the PCR machine, runs for about 3 hours. And then into my last couple seconds, I'll tell you about a couple websites. Mushroom Observer is my favorite website. You can upload your mushroom pictures there, and everyone votes on what kind of mushroom you have. And then I wrote this wiki page that tells you how to do DNA sequencing of mushrooms, but it also works with plants and animals. So if you want to discover new species, you can just go to this URL here for DNA sequencing. It tells you exactly how to do it. We have all of the equipment we need right next door. And there's my email address. And I do believe my 5 minutes is up.
All right, give me a second to get set up here. If anyone wants to do short announcements while people switch out between talks, you're welcome to have the mic. Good enough. All right, I'm here to talk about the People's Open Network, which is a project out of sudo. We're trying to build an internet service provider infrastructure that's owned and run by the community in the East Bay. We've been at this for a while, and right now, this is how people are connected to the internet. You have people connected directly through ISPs who are connected to each other. This is what we're trying to accomplish. We want everyone to be interconnected in a more resilient way, in a way where you're not paying big corporations to secure internet access, but where you can actually control the infrastructure yourself. We're using standard off-the-shelf hardware. This is our current favorite. It's cheap. We are getting these for less than $20 a pop. And we reflash them with firmware based on OpenWRT. It is actually OpenWRT just with our own additions. You can see it on GitHub. We have everything available. And then we supplement these little cheap indoor routers with roof-to-roof connections by using this Ubiquiti directional gear. Also very affordable, and we make our own mounts and put them up and just point them at each other. A map if people are interested. We don't have a current map of active nodes, but we're working on it. So right now we have something that's more like this, where you have people connected in little groups, and then they're connected to each other through ISPs. So we're kind of cheating. It's really hard to bootstrap a mesh, because it's really hard to get people on roofs mounting nodes in the beginning, but getting people excited enough to put a thing in their house is really easy. So we're doing this thing where everyone puts one in their house, and all the ones in the houses, they can't see each other yet because they're not close enough, and people don't have roof nodes, so they just cheat, and people hook them up to their real internet connection from their ISP, and until we get enough infrastructure and enough node density, they just talk through the ISP, so they're basically talking through the internet and cheating. But that means that every time there's a node somewhere, there's a free Wi-Fi hotspot. So we have a bunch of software available. You can go check it out on GitHub under the sudomesh account. The current projects we're working on is a new dashboard that makes it really just easy to see what's going on with your node and the mesh. Stuff so you can experiment with the mesh routing protocols without having any extra hardware other than your laptop. And a new map. And we're having an upcoming workshop on the 18th, on Saturday the 18th, in this room at 1 p.m. And we'll have a brief talk, not as brief as this one, about what the mesh is doing and how it works. And then we're going to have just like hands-on workshop, how to mount nodes, how to crimp Ethernet, how you actually install this gear. No technical knowledge required. I wanted to briefly mention another project that I've been working on with Yorit. as part of the People's Open Network. It's a low bandwidth disaster recovery mesh network. Very low bandwidth, very long range, much easier to deploy because the nodes don't need to be pointed at each other, don't need line of sight. You can just put them anywhere, they don't need cables run. The idea is we're using this new thing called LoRa, L-O-R-A, you might have heard about it. It uses a new kind of radio modulation called, well, it's not that new, but it's uncommon. It's called CSS, or chirp spread spectrum. So here's a guy at New RadioCon, and he's doing a talk about how he reverse engineered this entire protocol. So it's unfortunately proprietary, but standardized. And so there's a bunch of cheap chips on the market now that uses this protocol, and they get about, with a normal omnidirectional antenna, you can get about 3 miles range in an urban environment. It's really good, really low bandwidth, but really long range. And he's showing this CSS modulation in this slide. I recommend you check it out if you're interested, check this talk out. We're using these chips from Microchip. They're like $13 a pop. And then you can easily talk to them. You don't really need a lot of support electronics. As you can see here, it's able to do 12.5 kilobits per second maximum with the LoRa modulation. So it's not a lot of bandwidth. In Europe, a group started this thing called the Things Network, and they covered the entirety of Amsterdam technology for Internet of Things. The problem with LoRa is that it's designed for what we call a kind of hierarchical setup where these node phase and many lab meshing. So we looked into the data sheets for these chips, and we found out you can completely ignore what they call the LoRa WAN, this whole system of how you're supposed to report to gateways, and you can just talk directly from chip to chip. You avoid these very expensive gateways. You have this decentralized mesh. So we're building rooftop nodes that are solar powered. We have some software that's in development to make this work with normal Linux stack. And we have some hardware, very early hardware prototypes. Basically, the idea is this has an antenna, 2.4 gigahertz semi-directional antenna pointing straight down. You drop it on your roof, you talk to it with your phone or your laptop over normal Wi-Fi. Then it has an omnidirectional 900 megahertz LoRa antenna on the top, and a LoRa chip and a little Linux Wi-Fi computer, and a solar panel, 3 watts, and a battery for the night operation. It's about $50 worth of hardware. The idea is you can just drop them on rooftops. They don't need to be hooked up to anything, and then they'll all mesh. Software is still missing. No one has released an open source mesh protocol for this kind of stuff. Thank you. In the meantime, to those of you who don't know, you are in the Omni Commons right now, which is a collective of collectives. It's all volunteer run, non-profit, grant and membership payment supported. So if you appreciate what we do here, and if you don't know what we do here, we'll get into that later, but if you appreciate what we do here, there are hats going to be passed around. Some of you may have already donated online, but in any case, I'll hand it off and I'll talk more in between other things.
Alright, cool.
So, hi, I'm Jeff. I didn't actually put my name on the slides, but I'm Jeff. I wanted to go next because I feel like this is a little bit related to the People's OpenNet, even though it's not technically related. It's kind of a similar idea. So a couple weeks ago, I think, I came here for the first time and I was like, is anybody interested in building some sort of like encrypted equivalent of Facebook, where it's like more of a peer-to-peer social network thing? And somebody, probably Mark I forget, said, "You mean like SSB?" And I was like, "What?" And so I looked it up, and apparently this exists already, and it was started, I think about a year and a half ago, and it actually almost completely works. It's really awesome. So instead of trying to get in on the ground floor and like code everything, I think all I am probably gonna be working on, and whoever else wants to help here, is just sort of working out the sort of remaining kinks in it and trying to actually get people to use it. So it's called Secure Scuttlebutt, which is a pretty funny word. And I was gonna say you should get on the Wi-Fi network and try it during the talk, but my demo thing isn't working, so never mind. But this is, this little guy is the actual thing I made. It's in the room over there, and you'll see what it's for like a little bit later. But so first of all, the word scuttlebutt just means like it's like a barrel everybody gathering. It's like if you called something a water cooler, except it sounds like cooler and more piratey sort of. So it pretty much just means gossip. And what this is more of it's a computer gossip protocol. So that means there's no central server. It's just based on different people, like whenever they meet, they exchange gossip about people they know, and then sort of everybody's messages to each other propagate through that. And I don't think it has any sort of guarantee that you'll get specific messages, but overall it works pretty well, and you pretty much always do. So the way it works is everybody who's running this, it's called Scuttlebutt or SBot program, they publish sort of like a Twitter feed of digitally signed messages. Everybody has like public and private keys. And so they publish like a feed of signed messages. When you're on Wi-Fi, the program just looks for anybody else running it and like syncs messages with them if they are. So you download things from people you've friended or / followed or friends of friends, but not further out than that. And that's important because it keeps you from having to download the entire world's data all the time and keep everything consistent, which would suck. So, and then you decrypt any private messages to you. And so that's the basic protocol. And it has a few really cool properties. One is that it works entirely without the internet. It works over the internet also, but if the internet were to disappear, this would still work as long as people could connect to individual Wi-Fi hotspots, and they also like travel around and connect to the same things as their friends. So it would be slower, but the gossip would still all work. You can also, it's a pretty good protocol for hiding message metadata, so you can see who's following who, but you can't see them exchanging messages with each other because there's no actual like to address on messages. You just find out that you got a message because you're able to decrypt it because it's like encrypted to your public key. And if it's not, you don't know who it's to or anything because it doesn't say that anywhere. It also has a very cool implementation of like a PGP web of trust. So you don't have to like go to key servers and verify who people are just because you can assume that they are who they say they are because you can see that your friends have also friended them, and so they're like implicitly saying this is the person you think it is. And so it's a very nice, sort of effortlessly better than the regular web of trust, which is awesome. It also discourages spam because it's not like email where you can just message everybody at once. You can only message people who are following you, spamming you. You just unfortunately won't be able to spread spam. The other cool thing is that it's a really general protocol. Like, these are a bunch of possible uses for it, and the majority of them are already built and working, actually. Like, there's sort of the thing I'm going to show you in a second works kind of like Twitter or email. Facebook is the one thing that doesn't really work yet because they're working on encrypted group messages, which is harder than to individual people. But they actually have Git and Git working on top of it already, and there's sort of like a decentralized GitHub related thing that I haven't tried where you can, they're actually developing it on it now. There's a torrent tracker thing where it's like SoundCloud, except you're just sharing a feed of magnet links and then it torrents you all the sound files as you click around on them. It's pretty cool, and it's a key server, it could be a forum. It's a really general protocol. It works for anything that anything that's based on like gossip or socials related things might work. So that's just the basic protocol. It's called Secure Scuttlebutt. So the thing that's the actual social network on top of it that it was kind of built for is called Patchwork. And it actually works, and you can just look at it real quick. This is my personal feed of it. So what it is it's like it's a Node.js program that you run, and then you go to localhost 7777 on your computer, and it appears like a website, but it's all built on this decentralized protocol underneath. You pretty much, there's an activity feed, which is like kind of like a Facebook wall or something. You can see everybody's posts. You find out if you have any private messages. You've got contact list. It's kind of really nice how obvious everything is. Like if you just play with it for a couple minutes, you'll understand everything and be able to message people. And it's the simplest thing I've ever seen for getting everybody to use PGP properly. Like it just auto-generates you a private key, and like whenever you private message people, it uses it, and it's super effortless, which is cool. So there's two ways to install it. There's an Electron app, which is like it's like the web app wrapped in a desktop app, and you can get that probably on Mac is where you want that. And then otherwise you just install this like Node.js package, and you'll see in a minute, I'm hoping to like distribute documentation along with the little servers that do this. So anyway, the one last part of this is everybody can't just auto find each other over the internet because that's hard. So there's these things called pubs, which are they're like regular peers or SBOT things, except that they have a static IP address so you can find them from wherever. And that they give out invite codes, and they'll like follow anybody with an invite code, so you can you can put them on like you get a QR code or something where you can join the pub. So the problem with this so far is that everybody uses this one pub by one of the main developers. I think it's either in the UK or the Netherlands or something, I forget. And that's not really very decentralized. And so what I want to add to this is I think we could distribute little like physical barrel things that are also Wi-Fi hotspots and have the scuttlebutt pubs in them. They could go to like hacker spaces or universities or whatever, and I think this would actually be a really good complement to a physical mesh net, because it's one of the only things I've seen that's a compelling use case for what you can do with a mesh net without the internet. Like this would let you talk to all your friends securely and like exchange files and stuff without any connection to anywhere else if you wanted to. Although, like, for now it's a little geeky for most people to want to. And also, I think if and when we get this going, it might be good to have some tech support for people to try and install it and stuff. So the actual thing that I've made so far is this glorious pub server here. It's supposed to be in a barrel, but I couldn't find a barrel for under like $30, so I just didn't get. What it is a Wi-Fi hotspot that serves an open Wi-Fi network, and then on the network it has a Scuttlebutt pub, and so you can just connect to the network, and then it'll. I haven't finished the landing page yet, but it'll give you instructions on how to install it and stuff. And I think there will be probably a steady stream of people just trying to go on free Wi-Fi networks who will discover it, and maybe some of them will like it. So the next step, I think, is to make the barrels a little nicer looking. I was thinking an actual barrel, maybe with some LEDs that like flash when it gets messages and stuff. Or maybe, it could be like a little friendly robot that's like, hi, be my friend or something. Yeah, so that's one of the next steps. And the other is sort of building a local like social mesh network. And these are the first 3 nodes that we have like an idea to put up. There's one that Mark already put up at Noisebridge. It just needs a little configuration. There's one here that just needs a little configuration. And then we're also going to try and put one at this place called a Rainbow Mansion. It's like so yeah, I think I'm hoping that it would grow to slightly less geeky places eventually, but this is a good place to start as like a sort of inter-hackerspace thing. So yeah, any questions? Cool.
What's the website?
So there's not really, I think the best place the documentation about it is kind of fractured right now. The best place to start is probably the github.com/SSBC for Secure Scuttlebutt Consortium. And then there's a bunch of, there's sort of a guidebook that's being developed, and it has a website, and I think it's like scuttlebutt.io or something, but there's no one central good place to learn about it yet, which is actually one of the things I think I might be able to help with, because that's like, as somebody who doesn't know what's going on, I have sort of an inherent advantage of like fixing the documentation. JEFDAJ@gmail.com. Dad. Yeah.
Hey Rob, can we get some troubleshooting on the display output? It's not detecting that, that's the display. Okay.
How many of you guys were in the AV club in high school? All right, thank you. All right, hi. My name is Anka, and I'm mostly a pseudo-room email list lurker, but I'm working on a project, and I'm hoping that I can get some feedback from you guys afterwards. I became very interested in Internet of Things stuff a few years ago when I started doing work with Arduino and building all kinds of things available to hackers and refrigerators taking down NASA and stuff like that. So it seems like super dumbfounding that people would just build all these devices with like zero security. So that is very interesting. And then earlier this year, I read that the FTC, and you might be interested in this also, has this home inspector challenge where they're giving away $25,000 to people who can build a device or mostly a device or a program in May. So there's like plenty of time to create something interesting. So I got together with my friend Michael Schrecker, who he and I have built some light-up art and things like that. But he's a sysadmin, so we're building a tool that will help us teach people about their home network. And like I'm imagining like being able to sort of visualize what's going on, what are the devices, and who are they talking to, and do I want them to be talking to those devices? We want them to know when something is on their network. really interesting information that is completely incomprehensible to people who don't understand how to read a wall of text. So we're looking at a tool called Nmap, which has like some interesting, like a bajillion different ways of like showing you what's going on in your wireless network, and like who like brought a computer in, and maybe it's still connected, or maybe it has it's using up an address. And I actually started doing this in my house and discovered that, you know, my Apple TV somehow had 2 different IP addresses, and it was breaking a bunch of other things that I had never really thought about. I just spent my time cursing at it. So there's some really interesting tools that need just a little bit of help. So I'm going to be using some Python. Python has an Nmap library that makes it a little bit easier to process some of this data. We're thinking about something that at the moment is just a simple sort of local database. One of the things I did find is that Nmap doesn't give you like historical visualizations of like what was in your network and all of this other stuff. So I want to be able to know that, you know, Saturday last week, my friend came over to my house and put their device on my network, and oh my gosh, it was insecure. And you know, while they were here, or maybe they got owned and things happened. So I want to know that if that device enters or leaves, I can let my friend know, hey, this is not cool. Or if I bring home some awesome new like robot that talks to the internet, that it's not also like sending things that it shouldn't be sending, like my network configuration or other useful things like that. So we haven't made a huge amount of progress. I'm standing up here on March 1st, and hopefully next time we do this next month, I will have like an actual demo with like circles and arrows. And so far I haven't brought down my network with penetration testing, but I'm sure that will happen. And yeah, I'd love to talk to you if you have any expertise in this area, or if you have some tools that I should look at. Yes, my name is Anka, and I am on the sudo wiki at Anka, and also on the mailing list. Thank you. If anybody doesn't have a question? All right.
How do you spell Anka?
ANCA. Yeah.
All right. If you haven't noticed, there's mac and cheese in the back, and there's both gluten-free and vegan options. So feel free to go sneak off to that. We're gonna have one more talk, and then we're gonna break for a little bit and come back and do the last 5. If you want to be the first after the break, just find me on the floor while we're breaking. And I wanted to check, who here has never been to sudo room before? Ah, okay, quite a few people. So you probably know sudo room is a hackerspace. It's very similar in spirit to Noisebridge if you've been there. Sudo room is just one of the organizations here. As I mentioned before, we have multiple organizations here. We have organizations like Liberated Lens, which is a documentary filmmaker collective focused on radical films and activism. We have Food Not Bombs in the basement, Fat Beats, both food justice organizations. And if you want to see the entire list, you can go to omnicommons.org. Omnicommons is the name of this space. And there's a list of, I think, are we at 10 or 12 collectives right now? Not all of them, but dedicated space. And yeah, I'm just stalling a little bit here. Okay, we also, if you don't know about it, we have counterculture labs. Both sudo and counterculture labs are in the back just behind me. You can go out this way and go all the way through if you want to check it out during the break or later. Counterculture labs is a science hack space where most people are focusing on biology. Alan mentioned it in his talk about mycology. There's a mycology group there called Bay Area Applied Mycology. There are a bunch of synthetic biology projects going on, like Real Vegan Cheese and the Open Insulin Project. And I think we have someone ready to go.
My name is Morgan. I'm here to talk tonight about a device I've been working on called the Hubbilizer. A little bit about me and why I decided to work on this project. I enjoy riding my bike very long distances. Go ahead, Mike. There we go. I enjoy riding my bike very long distances. I've bike touring for many years, and it is not uncommon for me to want my phone and other devices charged along the way. So I end up using a dyno hub, which converts, typically they're used for a light. They convert 6 volts AC used to power a light to 5 volts to charge a phone. It's based off of a really old standard, and it hasn't come along in decades and decades. So I've been looking to build better devices that run off of the dyno hub. A lot of the times, the devices, usually to do these conversions, take a minimum speed in order to start working. And otherwise, all the power that's still being generated, despite not being enough, is basically just wasted. I am also a big fan of yak shaving, hence building such a ridiculous single-purpose device. This is what I've ended up building. This is the Hubbilizer. It's a bike board. This is a standard dyno hub, would have had a disc brake mount, and instead of the disc brake mount, I have put on some gearing, and I've taken some old quadcopter parts, and the idea is that an external electric motor will turn the hub for me at a speed that would simulate actually riding, particularly riding uphill, where the power generation is at its lowest. For years I've used, this is a really common device called sine wave revolution. It does great. It's fairly efficient, but it's designed to be its most efficient when the hub is running at its most efficient. So it'll hit 95% efficiency converting when you're doing above 10, 12 miles an hour. So it basically does nothing as a result when you're going up a hill at 2-3 miles an hour, grinding away. Just an up-close shot of it, and this is the power supply for it. So the data that I want to get from this is to be able to get precise measurements of what the hub itself is outputting, so the AC from the hub, getting the speed of the hub. That's really important because I want to start making devices that can actually take into account how fast you're going, rather than trying to just convert whatever power is coming out of it, using different methods of conversion, for example, using different inductors. So different size inductors will work better for trying to draw from very low current supply versus the high current supply. So then it can operate more efficiently at the top and the bottom. But mostly what I want to talk about tonight is the fact that all of this was made here at SudoRoom, and it was all made with tools available in SudoRoom. The gearing, for example, I've gone through a dozen different prototypes for the gearing, which I wouldn't have been able to do without having access to the laser cutter. To be able to change the dimensions of my gearing or mounting options for my gearing, and to be able to cut out new parts rapidly was a huge part about actually progressing on this. Where's Rob? I didn't get shot. Rob didn't get shot. Yeah, so that I would not have been able to get that far in this project as quickly as I did because without being able to rapidly change the design of the gearing, particularly having a variety of mounting options. Like nobody's going to make a gear with a disc brake cutout in it. So it was really important to be able to quickly try a bunch of different options, trying different motors, and to be able to get through that quickly. Then down to soldering stations, like being able to do a fairly clean job. A big part of that is having tools available to work with. And in fact, just about everything in this project was just scavenged out of bins as well. This is an old server power supply, some relay boards to turn on and off the speed controller that actually drives it. just wiring boards and stuff like that. These are stuff that not everybody necessarily has at home, especially me for the last couple of years living in a very, very tiny apartment. I definitely don't have any of this stuff at all anymore. So it's good to be able to have access to that kind of stuff in this space. Then just other just like good multimeters and is absolutely necessary to build any stuff like this. And power supplies, having good benchtops power supplies, is really big. Before I built the actual power supply, it's great to have this sort of stuff available. Here's one of my favorite tools, second favorite tool in sudo. This is the laser cutter that I do a lot of work on. And just, one of many of the really great tools that are available in sudo. This is part of a campaign that I proposed and I'd like to push forward is a made at sudo campaign to really just show off like the capabilities of what we can do here. And the more people that come and use these things, the better all of them will be, and the better all of us will be for it, because we can always bounce ideas off of one another. So if you have not come and made something in sudo, I highly recommend you do that.
All right. Before we break, following up on Morgan, sudo membership is sliding scale, all the way down to 0 if you're willing to put in a little bit of work every week, or down to $10 a month if you're not. Show up any Wednesday, this one included, and say you want to be a member, ask a few questions about what do you think is exciting, what do you want to work on, and wait 4 weeks, get an access card, get 24/7 access, come into studio room anytime you want, work on things at 4 a.m. if you need to. And we're non-hierarchical. You can come in and you can do basically whatever you want. Just, talk to people and rearrange things and set up whatever you want. And there's a mailing list. So if you want to bounce ideas off people, you have questions, just go to sudo.org, find the mailing list, get on there, start asking questions. Okay, thanks. We're going to break for 10 minutes and just socialize and hang out. And then in 10 minutes, we're going to come back. We're going to have Substack, who is a sudo member, recently moved to Hawaii and well, I don't want to ruin the surprise, but he's been doing interesting things in Hawaii. Thanks all for coming. See you in 10 minutes. intro?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Like, welcome back.
Yeah, do that. Hey.
Are you like the one who's coordinating this? Alex? I was wondering if it's possible to like jump in and do another maybe like 5 minutes after that. So I'm sure my face is Can you like wave at me if or you just like say
I'm going to be setting it up.
Oh, is he not? Is he everyone, so we're going to start up again in a few minutes. Margaret's just setting up the video link with our dear friend Substack, OG sudoer, currently in Hawaii. Oh man, ooh, take the spotlight, Rob. And I think we have about 7 presentations, and then we can do probably a few impromptus afterwards. So if people want to come up and give like a 1 or 2 minute spiel on their project. What's Substack going to be talking about?
I don't know. Let's see. Awesome. Let's see if we can get just the right side here. I don't know how to do that. Does anyone know how to Google Hangouts works?
Yeah.
Can you get just the screen sharing portion? Oh, never mind. I guess this is what we have. Let me see.
Can you click on the white thing in the lower right corner? Is that the screen?
So, Substack, are you planning to do audio, or is it? I assume you're going to be talking, but I'm not hearing you right now.
Unmute. Unmute thyself.
Yeah, I guess I could just pull out the IRC client. You could write, but it might be hard to do code samples and chat at the same time. James has done it before. I'm still having audio problems here. I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you, but I think there's a bit of delay with the live stream here. Maybe you can still hear.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Hello, everyone. Sure.
Yeah, you should start. Definitely start.
Okay. Let's talk about peer-to-peer cartography. I'm Substack. I'm a member of a new software co-op that I started with some friends. And I'm live streaming to you from Pune District in Hawaii. And the internet goes out like all the time. So maybe we'll get lucky. All right. So there's this really great open database that has a Libra license for map data. It's called OpenStreetMap. It's about 35 gigabytes of map information. But the problem is, if you actually want to use OpenStreetMap for anything, you've really got only a couple of options. You can either download all of the Planet OSM file yourself and run a bunch of quite arcane commands to massage it and to get the data in an appropriate format, or you can go with a centralized service. So examples of these centralized services, you might use Mapbox, or maybe you don't even care about open data and you just stick a script tag on your page and use Google Maps to render a map on your page. So this is not a very good state of affairs. And so I have a project. I'm trying to get rid of all of these intermediaries, all of these middlemen, all of these services that make it really difficult and costly to use maps in projects. So some more problems with maps are that, for example, with Google Maps, if you make a site and you use Google Maps and it gets too popular, all of a sudden you have to worry about quotas and you'll have your access taken from you randomly if your project gets too popular. And if you want to customize any of these map tiles, it's very, very difficult. So with PureMaps is the entire Planet OSM dataset published. So what it does is it takes 1,000 o5m.gz files, and each of those files do ad hoc extracts. So what that looks like is if, here I have the coordinates for the state of Hawaii. So I can run PureMaps commands. So I can run PureMaps files and paste in those coordinates, and I get a list of the tiles that it takes to represent this whole thing. And so if I want to dump the data for those coordinates, I can pass in any coordinates I want. And because I have the data cached locally, it's pretty fast. But if you were to run this same command on your own computer without having your cache primed, then it would go out to in this case, the IPFS network to pull in the files from peers instead of from a centralized map host. So that part already works. That support is also partly implemented. It doesn't quite work yet. The other piece of this whole project is a database called OSM P2P DB. And what that lets you do is
it takes map edits and it puts them into a log. The nice thing about logs is that it's very easy to replicate with peers, even offline. In a similar way to, there was a talk earlier about secure scuttlebutt, which I also use. So if you make edits and you log those, then all that you need to do to share your data with the peer is to concatenate your log with your friend's log. And now everyone has all of the data that's available. And you can do this in offline environments, which makes it very interesting. So we also have a WebGL tile renderer in the works and a peer-to-peer routing layer that Mikola Lysenko has been putting together. So here's what the rendering is. Not super great, but it's a work in progress. So this is all of Pune district here in Hawaii, in East Hawaii. And you can look around, it's got text labels and things. So this data is pulled directly off the Pure Maps network. And pretty soon you'll also be able to do peer-to-peer routing that works offline. So you can pick a spot on the map, pick another spot. If you have those tiles already on your machine, you'll be able to generate a route without any servers and just from your peers. Okay, that's pretty much it. Thanks. Some pics. Any questions?
Was that the render?
The question is that the render?
Because we missed it.
Yeah, we missed the last part of it, unfortunately, because the screen went. Oh, okay. This part? They were asking if the image you were showing us before was the render. Yes, this is the render using WebGL of the raw Pure Maps data right now. So it's a work in progress.
Can you switch the window?
Can you show the render again? This is, yeah, I'm showing it right now.
Nope.
No, we're seeing some ping windows in HTTP Discover and IRC. Oh, okay, that's
You got a screen resolution.
all right. It's on my screen. Yeah, now I see it. Okay, whatever. Questions?
What made you want to do this?
Questions? Yeah, I heard the question. So what made me want to do this was I've traveled a lot and I'm very frustrated whenever I travel and I don't have data for whatever reason and I have no idea where I am. And even when I try to cache the maps for an area offline beforehand, it doesn't work for a lot of reasons, and it's just really frustrating. It's especially frustrating when you're using a map and you're viewing the same city over and over again, but every time you're fetching the same content from some server, who knows where around the world, and this is just not a very good way of doing things.
Cool. Can I do it on my Android or like what? Is this Linux? What?
So right now it's just the raw data set is on the peer-to-peer network. So I'm working on a thing where you'll be able to use pretty much any web browser to view the maps. So an Android browser or just on a laptop or something.
How do you become a peer?
Couldn't hear that? How do you become a peer? How do you become a peer? So you can install the Pure Maps command. I don't know if you see that right now, hopefully. Yep. There's a Pure Maps address command, and that prints out the addresses. So there's an IPFS hash and a DAT hash. So if you want to become a peer, all that you need to really do is to start downloading data onto your local machine, and then for example, with IPFS, every tile that you download, you also advertise to the network. So sharing can become really
fluid. Or you can also IPFS pin that hash. I think that's the command, or pin add, and that will download the whole thing so that you can share it.
So if you have a full data set of all 200,000 pieces, will you broadcast 200,000 pieces on the DHT and your local network?
So I think the question was, if you have all 200 files or whatever, then will it broadcast all of the hashes? I believe so. Here, I've got some of the data here. So yeah, the nice thing about the PeerMaps dataset is that it's organized hierarchically. So in every one of these directories, there's a meta.json file. And that kind of, you can walk this file if you have some latitude and longitude coordinates to kind of work your way down into a subdirectory. I think if you do clone the entire repo, you will broadcast all 200,000 on some hashes. So I think you'll probably want to set, for example, your file descriptor limits to be pretty liberal for this purpose.
Mike.
All right, thank you. Okay, who's next?
I couldn't get my display to mirror, so I can't actually see anything on my screen, so I'll have to sort of do this thing. Okay, hi, so I'm Steven, or I'm Novel on IRC and GitHub. Let's see, so I'm working on something called Hyperpad, but to set up the dominoes in a row to make this sound particularly cool, let's first look at, are you familiar with this perhaps? Google Docs. Or if you're sort of more in the developer community, maybe you're familiar with Gigapast. What these two things have in common is so they're both collaborative text editing programs. These are useful for a wide variety of things. Like planning meetings, or strategizing documents, or coordinating things, all sorts of uses. However, they all have a couple of other things in common. One is that you need a connection to the internet in order to really make use of them. Another thing is that you require servers for them to operate. And in the case of Google Docs, you're actually relying on Google servers that they operate, and they can read your data, they can do analysis on that, or whatever else they want to do, I guess. Etherpad is open source, that's awesome, but suffers from the fact that you still need someone generous enough to run a server for you,
and whoever runs that server can also eavesdrop or destroy documents or kind of do whatever they want. So in both cases, they're really powerful tools, but they're sort of fragile, and the user isn't really empowered by them. So using technologies that are actually not that similar from things that Substack is using, I'm working on something called Hyperpad. And Hyperpad is a peer-to-peer collaborative text editor. So what does that mean? So its main, I guess, like selling points are that you don't need servers. So it uses peer-to-peer connection protocols. So this could be like a server that you run, and maybe use WebSockets from the browser, but it could also connect to peers over your local area network, kind of like Secure Scuttlebutt, or using WebRTC, which allows browsers to connect to each other directly. Really, any kind of duplex stream can be used to model this. So Bluetooth, potentially sound waves, any protocol you can think of that is stream-based can be used to carry text editing data from user to user. And so Hyperpad built off something called Hyperlog, which uses Merkle DAGs, which is kind of a more complicated data structure than what, say, Bitcoin uses for like the blockchain. The principal idea is that once you append a new entry onto this data structure, you can't change it. It self-verifies its integrity, so that you can always be sure that if you get data from someone, new data about this data structure, you can always be assured that it is correct, even if you got it from someone that you don't potentially trust. So Hyperlog takes the linear blockchain and lets you form a directed acyclic graph. So on top of that, I built something called Hyperstring, which is a textual document representation built on top of a Merkle DAG. And this means that you can do operations like inserting and deleting, and these are all captured on this data structure that is append only, and it's sort of infeasible for anyone to impersonate or change the data. So on top of that, I wrote Hyperpad, which is right now it's a browser-based collaborative peer-to-peer text editor, and if we can actually try doing a live demo. If anyone wants to try and connect to hyperpad.io/?doc=5-mins. So this is using WebRTC. So if you go on this document and if you see what I've written. So this is actually writing entries to the hyperstring, the hyperlog, where right now each character is an entry, although later on you'll be able to do smart batching and things like that. So each character is an entry, and rather than referencing characters by position, where like the first one is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, instead each character has its own unique hash that uniquely identifies it. So when you start writing from here, you're not writing from character index 5, you're writing from character index some long text string. And this property means that even if I work on this document offline and sync up with other peers online later, that that my intentions will be captured properly, even if people have made sort of changes that would have been incompatible in other text editors. So someone's having a good time. There might be some like concurrency issues, which is why maybe some text is being messed up. I don't really know what they're trying to type. So if I do cut my internet connection, all the data is also stored in IndexedDB inside the browser. So the browser actually saves its data structure so that you can edit offline in a browser. Yeah, so potentially this is a cool tool that can empower individuals and communities to do collaborative text editing in a way that they have control over. Yeah, thanks. Any questions?
Or are you thinking of doing any kind of like forking or branching sort of thing, it seems like it would lend itself to like a sort of a GitHub style something. I don't know.
Under the hood, actually forking and merging is happening. Like if you were to edit offline and I was to edit offline, and then when we connected, we would actually be doing an implicit merge.
Oh, okay.
But the data structure is such that there's no conflicts.
Cool.
So you can't end up with a bad situation where you've like stuck on each other's toes.
Cool.
So it's not, there's no server, it's peer-to-peer somehow?
Yeah. So there's right now it's using WebRTC, which technically requires a signaling server for the two routers to find each other. But once they've established a connection, then no servers are required.
So, I mean, how do you do that if you don't have a, like, I don't know, let's say you're at a hypothetical protest, like how do you?
Right. Maybe if you're in a protest, you have your phone, and maybe this would work over Bluetooth instead. So it could, say, form a direct connection between peers instead of over RTC.
But so, oh, I see.
Yes, the actual transport is sort of pluggable. So depending on the use case, you might make a HyperPad client that uses something that's more applicable to what your situation is.
So if you do that, then you just would have only like 2 people involved, though, right?
I guess so. I mean, what you could do is like, so maybe you and me connect and we work on a document,
Right.
and then maybe you connect with Kyle over there, and then you would actually sync my changes to him as well through you. So you can actually have this sort of slow propagation of edits,
Interesting.
depending on what the transport protocol uses.
How do you merge without conflicts?
The question is, how do you merge without conflicts? Because all textual inserts or deletions happen sort of at relative to some character, which is identified by a hash and out of position, then that's sort of, I guess, inherent. What is happening here? That's sort of inherently non-conflicting because you're not saying I'm inserting at this position. That could be invalidated later. I think it was like numeric. So 2 people can both say, I want to insert characters at this relative to this other character, but so it might be a conflict in the sense that you wanted your text to go first, but theirs ended up being first. But it's not conflicting in the sense that the document breaks and someone needs to manually go in and resolve merge conflicts. Capturing intention well in the like asynchronous cases. It's like I haven't played around with much, but I'm really here to see what this looks like in real life more. Cool, thanks.
Yeah. There's some things you legitimately need it for, like some job and stuff, and like most things. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. Hey, everybody. Okay, sorry about that. So, my name is Sarah Davis, and I'm going to talk to you about some sculpture stuff I've been doing with magnets. Now we're well into the video, but anyway, basically, this is a sculpture I did based on just rolling magnets in this kind of spherical, or in this dish. And it's an array of magnets that are, some of which aren't even powered by any inductive, like that's an inductive coil in case nobody knows that. But it's just actually the magnetic torque of the neighbors that's actually causing the other balls to roll. So just you rarely kind of see a situation where magnets affect each other at a distance. So I started getting really fascinated with that. Then this is another example of that fascination where I made this sculpture called Fire Ants. And it's basically two large, well, they're called ferrite, technically they're not, but anyway, these two large ceramic type magnets rotating underneath like a, what is that? Like one of those like desert plant domes, and then I glued a bunch of jewelry magnets to silicone wire, and the silicone wire has kind of a jiggly feel. So that was my next sculptural fascination, and yeah, more of that. And then I just started getting interested in like, okay, so there's basically an electromagnet underneath the plate, and I started just getting interested in the more anthropomorphization experiments of like what, you know, how things behave, how I could get them to, how I could constrain them to get them to hop around and, you know, make it seem like they're just living of their own will in some way. So these are again just jewelry. And so this is the, you know, this is the under the covers. Yeah, so these are just jewelry magnets. You can, you know, jewelry beads you can buy from China. And at some point in this video, if I haven't cropped it off, I'll start piling on. Yeah, there we go, more magnets. So it really has like a, yeah. I mean, the holes in the magnets really, I don't know, it's hard not to anthropomorphize that bug-like feel. Yeah, and so what's interesting about the electromagnets is they're not really, getting it to really behave in the way that I thought was interesting was not totally possible because it's not positive or negative, it's usually just on or off. So it was a bit of a muted effect. And then this is actually the latest thing I've been working on called water organ. There's no sound, but if there were, you would hear as the cans cross these coils, and there's tones, and I'm putting like, actually I'm using a random number generator to generate tones in these coils. And I'm actually using, instead of an amplifier, I'm using a motor controller because I can, that allows me to switch the polarity of the tones I'm generating into these coils. So that makes it so that it will actually pull the can into the coil and push it out. So I can change the direction, all while the can makes a tone as it floats over the coil because there's a magnet underneath. And then, yeah, they have, what's also interesting about this is there's magnets underneath all the cans, and they're all, let's say, north, for example, and then what that does is that all the cans kind of push away from each other, so there's a dynamic happening underwater with the coil, and also a dynamic happening between the cans, such that they don't really want to snap together, or they kind of want to avoid each other, so there's a chaotic dynamic, or kind of a strange attractor thing that I wanted to experiment with, and I'll just let it run for a little while here. You can shout out questions if you have them, because there's no sound to interfere with. By the way, the cans, so this has been a long series of collecting cans from like Creative for Use. Getting the right kind of can was quite a project. What might be kind of surprising, those door stops are actually helping to radiate sound. And it might also be surprising to you that a better resonator than these cans is acrylic, just these cheapo dollar store acrylic cups. But, oh, there we go. There's the sound. And goodbye. Yeah, so acrylic cups actually are very, very loud. They're very rigid, but they're also a little bit annoying. They're not soft enough, and I'm putting in a square wave type PWM sound, so it's kind of janky. Anyway, any questions?
Was that like a plastic wrap or something over wire?
Yeah, so the coils are underneath. They don't actually have to be technically, but oh, there we go. Sound is, it's very different in real life. There was no way I could capture the sound accurately even with the stereo mic, it just didn't work. What's that?
What's producing the sound?
I'm just sending a signal through the coils, like I'm sending, different tones, audible tones. And then that's also creating an electric field across the coil that's pulling this way and then pulling that way when I reverse it over, so it pulls the thing in and pushes it out.
So is the coil vibrating? That makes a sound.
The coil isn't vibrating, the coil is sending an electromagnetic signal, and the can, which has a magnet underneath it, is just acting like a floating speaker. So when the can floats over with its magnet, it goes, like a speaker would, basically. If anybody's expert at microcontrollers, actually, there's one issue I ran into here. So I actually have 7 coils. I could have gone up to 8. Basically, I'm doing a trick here that I'm not happy with, which is I'm running these tones off of timers, and I only have 4 timers. And so I just had to double up 2 operations on each timer. If you guys know an expert at PIC microcontrollers where they have more timers, I'd love some advice. I don't know what controller to choose. Anyway, sorry, any other questions? No? Okay.
Do you have a diagram of how to make that? On a website somewhere?
No.
Step by step?
I'll actually at some point, usually my kind of, I'm an artist, so I want to be a little bit ahead of the curve, but my strategy is once it feels like old news to me, I'll publish an Instructable or whatever on how to do it at some point. But it's just at the point where it's finally presentable and I'm trying to, get it shown in places, so yeah.
Can I ask real quick, does anyone want to speak who needs to leave soon? Okay. Okay, we have a bit of issue with this presentation. Who wants to go next?
This one's pretty quick. Like Mark and folks told me how we're going to start doing these regular 5 minutes of fame. I hope they're going to be monthly. And we also had a discussion on the list of Pseudorooms like has a lot of crazy inventors. We're not so we're not so into a lot of structure, having classes, and we tend to have a lot of people working separately on their independent projects. 5 minutes of fame is a great way for all of us to start collaborating and working together. And so we talked on the list. I'm really interested to see how we can maintain this independent spirit with people hacking on their own projects, but also find ways for us to cluster together. I guess become more team-like, as someone else on the list said, but without having to be a team. One way to do it is to frame our project nights as learn by building project night, where we can turn any random night, like it's a hardware hacking night, or a pseudo mesh night, or just anyone working on their projects. We could even hold it during the weekly meetings, and just check up on each other and just have a timeline and say, oh, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm going along. And then help each other construct our own mental schedules of learning and how we're going to achieve self-knowledge in something. And also to share our projects with each other. And then culminate in the first Friday, the 5 minutes of fame format, not first Friday. One example here of a cluster is the transportation group. One of our members, I think it's Jake, he's hacking on a Tesla. He does a lot of stuff during hardware hacking night, Tuesday nights. I also know, I know Carl has worked a lot with ride sharing, and I think Morgan, was it Morgan? He just mentioned a bike phone battery charging project. So I created a wiki page on transportation after seeing all these different projects. And I'd like to see if anyone would be interested in joining this and adding their project, and then just clustering with each other. We could the topic would be around cars, trains, ride sharings, and bicycles. And we could take our independent projects and perhaps find ways to collaborate with each other. So that's what it is. If anyone's interested in clustering on this topic, and then structuring a way to learn something that they're working on, I'd like to start here. Thanks.
My name is Tony. I'm visiting from Denver from the Open Media Foundation. We're here for a little conference tomorrow. It's just nonprofit organizations It's called Accelerate Good, nonprofit organizations trying to accelerate good with technology. And in Denver we have a space, a media space that has a few community media organizations, and then a hacker space called DenHack, which is Denver's first hackers collective. Now there's several. But we totally love this space. I'm glad that we happen to be in the neighborhood. So we're here to talk about this project we're doing called the Open Media Project for Government. And we did a little nonprofit accelerator program that helped us develop this presentation. I'm going to pitch it to you like we'd be pitching millionaire investors. So if any of you guys have millions you want to invest, you can talk to us afterwards. So everyone deserves democracy that we can see. In 2013, Wendy Davis stood for 11 hours to filibuster a bill in Texas aiming to restrict access to abortion services. 200,000 people tuned into the live stream. This is the first year that Texas had ever live streamed their proceedings. 200,000 people tuned in live to watch this. Millions more were discussing it online. And in 99% of local governments, this just couldn't happen because their proceedings aren't being streamed and shared, even though the technology to do this obviously is more accessible, more affordable than ever. There are over 100,000 government entities in the United States. It's surprising, but over half of them serve really small towns and cities, like towns of like under 5,000 people, that can't afford, here in we just met with your county government today. They're using a company called Granicus, which was based here originally. Most of these small governments can't afford a service like Granicus to record video and audio of their proceedings. But it's in these small city councils and town governments where a lot of what's happening that most affects our day-to-day lives is happening. And right now, people think maybe there's not a lot of difference you can make at a national level, but you can still have an impact with your local government. It's in these local governments where zoning laws change and school bus routes are adjusted, but often, even if you find the issues you really care about, the only way to get involved is to physically attend the meetings. This is a photo from our Jefferson County School District when our kind of right-wing school district tried to change the history curriculum. And people cared, they wanted to just get involved, they had to physically show up. It's a barrier to participation we don't think is necessary anymore. So that's where this software as a service that we developed, it's called the Open Media Project, comes into play. We're here to bring small local governments into the 21st century. It's a software as a service based on what we built in the state of Colorado. We launched this also in 2013 as our first kind of pilot project for the state legislature and state house of Colorado. And in our first year, we more than doubled traffic to their site while cutting costs in half compared to what they had paid Granicus. We're trying to now bring it for free to small governments across the country because we believe price shouldn't be a barrier to transparency. You can find clips of I'm actually going to show a little demo of this afterwards, but you can find little clips of your legislators speaking. You can see the associated bills and agenda items, read the language of the bills, see the video of any of the issues you really care about. Nobody wants to sit through an entire city council meeting, but if you care about fracking, for example, you can sign up and be notified every time fracking is discussed in your local government. Videos alongside agendas, any other documents. We're using free live stream tools just like YouTube instead of building their own streaming service and a CDN to replicate what's already out there for free. Makes the cost much cheaper. We have a web team, our main web developer sitting in the back right there, and they've built hundreds of websites and web-based applications for nonprofits and governments, mostly in Colorado, but now we're trying to expand. We just currently only have 10 municipal governments in the Supreme Court and the state legislature of Colorado. We just added 2 in Oregon. We're here to announce it at this conference that we're trying to bring it nationwide, offering it for free for small governments because we believe open government is good government. So let me show you. Oops. Control V. we got a little prototype grant from the Knight Foundation to give an example of what this can do. So this URL is called she said, he said, .org. Our space in Denver is at 700 Calumet Street, where Den Hack is and the Open Media Foundation. So you type that in, it'll tell you who your legislators are. So ours are Christine Durand. Let's see who's done. So this is just a prototype, but it shows every time this legislator spoke. There's a little voice recognition audio analysis tool that it identifies every time each legislator spoke. Also shows her full voting record of everything she voted on every bill for the year. And you can jump to, or you can, you can pull up any time she spoke. You get the idea though. If this were working whatsoever, you'd know what I'm talking about. No, it's just my mouse that's not working. So here's affordable housing. So this shows the full voting on that specific bill. It tells you that it lost. It shows you why it lost, who voted for what. Shows her talking on that specific issue. Oops, this one's not working either. Anyway, you can go. This site is live and it actually works. So it's just a little demo of what we're doing. Now we have a simpler version that governments can totally install on their own and for free. If they're larger governments, we'll come after them for some payment, but small governments get to do it for free. So that's a demo of our little open media project. Thank you.
Wait, what about questions?
Sure, any questions while they're setting up the next one?
What, like, I'm not clear what part of the package is what you're offering versus what part they have to, like they have to administratively, like if there's some like right-wing government and they don't want to put something on the roster, they can just not, right? Like I'm not clear what, you know what I mean?
Yeah, most of the governments that are doing this with us are kind of like self-selecting. They're agreeing to do it. Most of them then have policy that kind of keeps them from like picking and choosing. There are other projects, like a really cool one out of San Luis Obispo here in California that are outside of government, so they're kind of doing this without the government's kind of approval. I don't know, it would be pretty difficult in Colorado too for the government to say we don't want this to happen because, there's been, it's a policy where they're making it happen. So, and to answer your question, like on a technical side of what we're doing, they could do all this on their own with like YouTube. It's mainly us putting in chapter markers so they can say this is what bill we're talking about at this point or another, letting them click on that. Building some software that scrapes through their agenda and preloads that all so that it says, okay, now we're talking about Bill 1322. Also making all the transcription data from YouTube exposed to search and Brian just added like Solar to make it a little smarter kind of search functionality. And then organizing it because, if you organize even playlists and stuff on YouTube, it's not very well organized, so it just makes it a lot easier for people to see. And then with the state of Colorado, we also put everything on archive.org so that you can download the files and so that they'll hopefully permanently archive everything they do. Yeah?
Has anybody built, or do you think they could build corruption indices on top of what you're rolling out?
Do you know of anybody that's built something like a corruption index on top of this sort of thing? There are, I've heard of little projects where people just keep track of campaign promises and then try and have little tools for tracking like the follow through on campaign promises. The TV News Ad Archive just did a great project out of archive.org here in town, where they were tracking campaign contributions just for around the presidential election, and then tying like legislation to campaign contributions. So yeah, I think that could definitely be done. Our focus is just getting like all the info out there, again, because we're working with the governments. We aren't trying to be like Mr. Gotcha. We're just trying to expand civic engagement and transparency. But our hope is that people will use it for purposes like that.
Mr. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, so you said it's policy in Colorado now. Are you doing any work on the policy level to try and, or are you working with people who are doing that work to try and make that spread?
No, we totally should be, but I mean, it's such a big fish to fry, obviously. And so right now we're working with the like 1% of governments that like really want this level of transparency. And, you know, one of our arguments we make is that 20 years ago, you know, almost no governments would have had like a website or would think that that's something you even need to do as a government agency. And now like even these little 500 person towns all have like a government website. And we think that, you know, a few years from now, this is just going to be the norm. Every government's got to have this. There's just no reason not to do it. You can do it with your cell phone for free if you want to. So, yeah, we're a pretty small organization. We're not trying to lobby government and force them to do something they don't want to do. It's enough work. You know, Granicus was the fastest growing privately held company in the Bay Area for like 4 straight years. This is a company that did nothing but provide this kind of service that we're talking about. So there's enough governments trying to pick up this kind of tool, and even, you know, school boards and potentially like homeowners associations and stuff using it. So we're just keeping up with demand right now, hopefully, and maybe one day we'll get big enough to convince people that they should be doing more of this. But yeah. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, I am Max, and I'm going to talk to you about autonomous sailboats. So between late 60s and early 80s, thousands of sailboats were made with way too much fiberglass and a terrible gasoline engine. And that means that now there are way too many small, sturdy sailboats that nobody really has a use for, and they kind of sell for the cost of the lead ballast. So what I want to do is make kind of an open source autopilot system for these sailboats, so that you can turn these piece of junk sailboats into autonomous research platforms. And yeah, so I have bought a 25-foot Cape Dory sailboat, and I'm in the process of turning that into a drone boat. And right now, it kind of works like a radio-controlled sailboat. So the tiller moves back and forth, and there's a wind sensor. So I'm working on a program that will set it up to hold like a wind angle. So it'll sail at the same angle to the wind, so if the wind changes, the boat will kind of compensate for that and hold that angle. And I have a demo of the interface that I'm using for the boat. And so if you go to, so there's a Raspberry Pi over on the piano that you can log into, and it's the Noisy Ghost SSID. Okay. Yeah, and then you want to go to like this website here, and you can like see a little it's like a Node.js web app that I'm using to host that kind of info. So I chose the Node.js program because it's really good for hosting a web server. And there's this plugin that you can get for it. It's called Socket.io, and it allows for it's mostly used for like chat applications. And I'm using it to send and receive data from that web page. So you can use the web page as a controller and display for your sailboat. And I have a block diagram, kind of what's going on. So like over here, I don't know if you can read this, but kind of over here, I'll just move through it. So there are 3 sensors I'm using. So there's a wind sensor and a sensor on the tiller and an accelerometer that I haven't plugged in. And yeah, so wind sensor, so the tiller sensor tells you where the rudder is in space, and the wind sensor just kind of tells you which way the wind's blowing. And with these 2 inputs, like plus like GPS, like you can kind of create kind of an interface that you can like a go-to kind of command for your boat. And I originally had like a Python program that I was using, but it kind of got I'm not very good at using like threading for the Python program, so I went to Node because it kind of has an asynchronous interface. So that allows like all like the Python programs that I have to be like really small and to kind of run those like as needed instead of having to run through the entire thread each time. So it's a more scalable option. I think that's kind of about where I'm at. And
wait, that was only part of the diagram.
I'm sorry?
That was only the left part of the diagram.
What about the left part?
I thought you were going to do the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So I also have like a GPS module that's plugged into the USB port, like on the Pi, and that's so like has data that's kind of being piped into the Node interface. And I also put and then there's also the access point setup, and that's kind of the lower part of the diagram. Yeah, and and then there's there's the interface that's live right now. If anybody wants to check that out, you sign into the Noisy Ghost access point, and then go to the then you just kind of then you go to this IP import. And I'm kind of looking for help at this point with it. This is kind of like the first time I've like talked about it like on stage. And yeah, if anybody wants to be like involved in this project, or wants to go sailing while I mess with configuration settings, open to that stuff. Yeah. So any questions? Yeah.
Steering a sailboat automatically sounds really hard. Like, won't you run into some wind condition where it'll just like capsize or something?
So the way that sailboats are usually run, like you want to like have the biggest sail you can and then kind of like let wind out, like have a really dynamic system for that, so you can get the most wind and go the fastest. But if you're I'm more interested in longevity.
Yeah.
So like because right now there isn't really a good option for something that is fast enough to fight currents. So like right now, like all like the ocean collection data is from either buoys that are stationary or kind of like floating platforms that just kind of like ride currents. But it's really hard to get data from like continental shelves or like areas where like the current's pushing everything out to sea and like away from there. Right now there's a project going on in Greenland where they drop sensors from an aircraft onto the Greenland continental shelf, and all they do, they just kind of like sink down, I think it's something like 500 meters, then they float back up, transmit a signal, and then by that point they've moved too far off the coast to be like of any use, so it's kind of just like a single data point from like each sensor, and like each of those is like $2,500. So if you had like a platform, like even like one that's like, even if you get like 4 of those, like before you like hit something, like that's still like a cost-effective solution. Yeah.
So is there a way to know if the sailor's tension rate, or are you just letting that?
Yeah, well, you know where the boat is, you can know where the position of like the sail is, and there's like ways of measuring tension on lines. I don't have that stuff set up, and I don't have anything for moving the sail back and forth. So right now, what I have is kind of like a radio control rudder. But I bought an ATV winch motor that I'd like to set up for like the main sheet to pull the main sheet in and out. And so that's kind of the next step for this project, is figuring out how to use an ATV winch motor to like keep it from fouling. Yeah. Yes.
So when these boats eventually stop working, it'll be kind of dangerous to have them just floating around the sea. So you're gonna have to implement some kind of like scuttle boat feature.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Just kind of like maybe just opening up like the through holes on it, like if you lose power or something like that. Yeah, but I think there'd be ways to probably like make that like an environmentally friendly thing to do to like sink the boat, because it wouldn't need like an engine on it, and like batteries would be pretty minimal, and you could kind of like enclose those.
Just gotta have it send out a signal and tell everybody where it is, and you get $3,000 worth of lead.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so as long as it's still transmitting, maybe.
I go get it.
Yeah. I've got a small side business.
What about the legal issues? There must be some legal issues here.
Right now, I'm so what the drone people do, like all the drones can operate autonomously, but technically that's like illegal. It's just kind of like an option that's in there. And I think that's kind of like the approach that I'll be having like with it, is kind of like it could be autonomous, but like right now it'll be just kind of a navigation system for whenever you're on the boat. So navigation and display. All right, thank you.
All right, I think we have 2 more people. Can I get hands for the people who are still planning to speak? Okay, 1 person? 2, okay. Yeah, great.
The internet works okay, you can just sign in the website?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go really fast through a bunch of stuff. My name is Ari, and I'm a member of the Saito Group. And the Saito Group is this collective of writers and designers and hackers that do projections and social media campaigns, often on the behalf of political groups that specifically relate to housing in some way, shape, or form. So we got our start at Occupy, specifically during the Republican National primary in New Hampshire. We built this tent, and interviewed people about why they were occupying, and then the reasons why they were occupying were projected on all four sides of the tent, so that anybody who was walking around the encampment would see all the different reasons why people were there, and they could possibly identify with why people were there. It would make it easier for them to talk to them. This, grew and grew over some time. Actually went to Europe and participated in the sovereign debt crisis, and I started collecting images of the different protests from all across Europe, as well as things where people were saying, and they were, again, broadcast on the tent. So that was the first project, and it was for Occupy. The second project, that was called The Beacon. The second project is called The Dreamcatcher, which was a projection at a squat in Olneyville, Rhode Island. And again, there was this kind of contention between the people who were in the squat and then the people who were in the neighborhood and their sort of legal battles with each other. And I was trying to make a point where they could communicate with each other. So my group and I built this window, and there was a projection in the window, and the window would have testimony, kind of like poetic testimony from the people who were living in the squat. It was a way for people to, from on the outside, to again understand their history, understand why they had come to occupy that building. The most recent project is called the Light Atlas, and it's for, oh shit, let's see what we can do here. And it's for the anti-eviction mapping group, which actually meets in this building. Let's see if this video works. It doesn't. Oh well. So basically, I took over a little section of 6th and Market Street and got the data from the anti-eviction mapping project, and you get a projection of the city. The projection of the city rotates. You zoom into a site of eviction. You get a line which is a testimony about somebody's eviction. The map rotates again, goes to the next site of eviction, gives you a piece of testimony. Rotates again, zooming in and out of the map of San Francisco and showing where people have been evicted, and also links together into a long poem about eviction in San Francisco. So this goes up at 6th and Market every couple of weeks. We're hoping to make it a more permanent installation and something that can be, continue to gather this testimony and grow as the anti-eviction mapping group's project continues to grow. So it's sort of like a live billboard. We've also been building, unfortunately I won't be able to play the video, but we've been building these Twitter bots that can see when people are enable their geotag, and it will then tag and come visit the project. Go to, can search San Francisco and see if somebody's posting about eviction, and then it can tell them to go to the anti-eviction mapping project's website. So it can direct people to the political groups that they need to be directed to. So that's a big library. There's a lot of features. Yeah. I think that's good enough for now. Projection kit, putting it in a car. Are there any quick questions?
What are you using power?
There's a big lithium battery connected to an S-wave inverter that then feeds into the projector. Ever since getting a vehicle, it's way easier to put my stuff up. I used to roll around on a bicycle, have it all in a camping backpack, and unfold it and do stuff. But it's better. Any other questions? No, we're good? Okay, thank you very much.
Where's the guy? Can I just walk up?
So I just walked in here. I work in education, and I want to quickly pitch to you what I think is the model of education of the future, and also an event that's going to be here in the Omni on April 2nd. The model of education that we have right now is based on the assumption that you need to teach children and that adults need to teach people so that they become successful in life. And it's based on the assumption that if you don't do that, people will fail, we are designed to succeed in this world if we are given. This is why I currently work in a school where, children are in complete control of their time. So that's one really making body in the school. It's called school meeting, and this, and it rarely happens because people figure out a lot of stuff on their own. So we call ourselves staff members, and every student and every staff member has one vote in this school meeting, and we vote on things like, if you wanted to come visit the school, this would be a motion in school meeting, and we would discuss it, and we would say like, yeah, okay, have a co-run space, and this is what we're doing. We're also voting for the people who work. People vote. This is the way to go. So just to throw around some names. In general, this is called self-directed, and then within self-directed education, democratic community, we want to run the school as a community. That's really quick about the model. Now, here's the event I'm organizing. There's a lot in the US too, but they're not in this movie. I'm also going to organize, I'm asking students right now if they can come over and answer people's questions, because really, for me, the most powerful thing is, I can tell you anything. Maybe they don't know what they want to do exactly with their lives, but they have a clear sense of self, and they're not afraid to ask for help, and I really believe this is the future. So, if you're interested in this, come to talk to me after this, and get one of those flyers.
How old are the kids?
Oh, right. So this school is K through 12.
Wow, so you have like kindergartners voting.
Yes.
So there's gotta be like just kind of a peer pressure thing, but whatever, that's cool.
So you're not obliged to be in school meeting. You go there if you want.
Oh, I see.
And young people don't care about it too much because they only care about the issue that they care about.
Yeah.
So if it was something about like, hey, we want to close the backyard and we want to get rid of, although we don't want that, but for the most part, they trust us because they see that their needs are met.
How did it get? I mean, did you guys decide you wanted to be like Montessori or Waldorf-like in the early stages? Like, how did it start?
So I feel like how this school started, it's actually in Concord. And we can talk about that later, but just because you mentioned the names Montessori and Waldorf, so when I talk about this, I hear the and Montessori are not going far enough because they still have a curriculum. And I believe that's a crucial point. Like if you believe that somebody needs to learn something, then you also need to teach it and you need to impose it, because what if they don't want to learn it, right? And I think we need to get rid of curriculum.
Yeah. Have you been at the school for a long time and seen people transition from that very highly democratic environment to and how they could?
Because so in one environment you're really empowered, and then you go to the real world and you're not empowered anymore. So and learn today in secondary education or even like in jobs, pretty successful secondary learning environments will be more empowering and more participatory. But secondary education is very different, I find, than from what we're doing, because you choose to go there. Right? And that is your choice. You can go there and you can say like, yeah, I know why I want it, so I don't care if I can't participate, or so I want to find something different. Yeah. They're pretty happy and pretty stunned that it actually exists, I mean, probably even you didn't know that there was at this point. But what happens is our time, like being in that environment, sometimes they have like they're struggling emotionally a little bit because something was done to them in the past that they need to like work with. And but usually they, at some point, I feel like they discover who they are and what they like, and then they pursue that and they find friends and yeah. Okay. Wait, can I answer that one last question?
I don't know if you said a website, but do you have a website?
Yeah, so the school I work, and then in general, I would encourage you to look up self-directed education and democratic education. Okay.
I believe we had one more on the schedule that hasn't spoken. Does anyone still want to speak?
Anka was on, which did she speak?
She spoke. No one else wants to speak? Because I'm having trouble seeing you. Oh, yeah. Come up. Whoever wants to speak, come up here.
Is there any constraint in terms of like topics?
No.
Okay.
We reserve the right to boo you off the street on stage if it's too bad. Terrible. So is Thomas here? Okay. Guess we had no show.
I haven't really practiced, but this is that I was working with. We had an event. We were formerly called Robin Hood Co-op and now called Economic Space Agency. Creating an open source distributed computing platform that will help take decentralization, communities, and peer-to-peer finance to the next level. And for those of you who is familiar with like blockchain protocol, we're basically combining that alongside a cryptographic capability to help create interoperable networks in like peer-to-peer finance where you can kind of like interact with one another. Like imagine like each communities now have the abilities to issue their own currency, so to say. And there is also a way to have interoperability like between both communities in terms of their currency and whatsoever in a secured way. And that's what we're working on. So if you or anyone that you know of is interested in this, we're especially looking for developers. But aside from that, anyone who's interested, we would love to connect with anyone. Thanks. And we're also based out of Oakland. So, Vienna? Yeah. Any questions? Oh, okay.
Are all the currencies money, or is there any way to make them like a voting system instead, or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. So we call them economic spaces, like each like community. But you can think of it as like game design. Those tokens doesn't have to have like monetary value. It can be just a token that coordinates, votes, for example. Yeah. So decentralized governance is also one of the key things that we are trying to achieve there. Any other questions? No?
How do I find out more information?
Yeah, sure, you can talk to me after this, but if you're a URL that you can look for is ecsa.io, like EC, like economic EC, SA like space agency.io. Yeah. Thanks. Great. Sorry. Oh yeah, actually we just started like a community hangout every Saturday at our garage in Oakland, which is actually just 8 minutes down the road. So, and the meetup group is called Meetup. It's on meetup.com/economyos. Yeah. Okay. No more? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
I figured I'd give a quick pitch for Counterculture Labs for those of you that don't know us yet. So Counterculture Labs is like right there behind that wall. We're right next to the sudo room. So we are a hackerspace for biotechnology and citizen science. So if you're interested in electronics and programming and things like that, you come to sudo room. If you're interested in the science side, you come to us. We have events going on pretty much every day of the week right now. We're usually kind of low on Thursdays and Fridays, but most other days we have some kind of events going on. We have a number of team projects that we're working on. We have one to create an open source insulin. Insulin was the very first genetically engineered drug on the market, but that was back in the early 80s, and there's still no generic forms of insulin available on the market. So we're trying to do an end run around that and coming up with an open source method for producing insulin. Another project we have is vegan cheese, and we're doing that in collaboration with our friends over at BioCurious in Sunnyvale. So we're trying to make real cheese proteins in baker's yeast, so we can make real cheese without any animal involvement, so no animal suffering, but also far fewer greenhouse gas emissions. So cheese is the #1 reason that vegetarians give for not going to. We have a new plant biology group that is learning how to do plant tissue culturing. So if you have some interesting orchids that you want to be able to propagate, or you want to learn about plant genetic engineering or all sorts of other topics. We have a fermentation station. If you happen to have too much fruit in your yard, come bring it to us and we'll make something interesting and drinkable out of it. Let's see, other projects.
So many projects.
Sorry?
So many projects.
So many projects, yes. Have you talked about bioart?
BioArt?
Or art and science, sorry.
No, I didn't say something.
Okay, so we have, what is it now, monthly art and science meetup as well. Not only bioart, otherwise Sarah would kill me. If you just want to come and visit us and get to know some of the people involved, drop by on Tuesday evenings, 8 o'clock we have our weekly social. Just drop by and we'll have some pizza and some people bring beer. But, yeah, come join us. We're a member-based hackerspace, so all of our events are on Meetup. Check us out on Meetup, Counterculture Labs. All our events are open to anybody, but we do like to persuade people to become members and help us pay the rent here. So, all right, thank you.
Also,
any questions?
Are we doing like a tour open house thing or a little bit of a thing?
We could, yeah. If people are interested in doing that.
Yeah, we're done. So if you wanna lead a tour.
If anybody's curious.
Okay, Daniel, do a wrap up. Everyone who wants to go on a tour behind onto the
Yeah, I
CCL.
was just gonna say what you're saying.
Oh.
We can give a little tour of this space, which you probably, if you haven't been here very often, or this is your first time, you've probably only seen a very tiny fraction of it. There's a lot of different groups and activities in the building, and this is only probably like, I don't know, a quarter of the entire building. This is the largest part. There's lots of nooks and crannies that are really interesting. We also just finalized the purchase of the building in December. So our monthly costs are now lower, and everything that we pay each month towards mortgage actually goes towards full and total ownership of the Omni as a community-owned and operated building.
Jenny!
Yeah, we should do it. We should do a tour. By and large, if you're interested in utilizing the space, in organizing a project here, your own project, and organizing a meetup, or event, fundraiser, benefit, just general party, that's what the space is for. It's for the community to use. So please, like, dream big and go for it. Do you want to add anything, Mark? Thank you for being an awesome host.
Thank you all for coming. Anyone who wants to go tour, just proceed over to the table right there where Patrick, who was speaking before, is standing. And I hope to see you all next month. And I hope to see some of the new awesome projects that I know you're working on that you didn't present.
Every first Monday. First Wednesday.
Every first Wednesday. Thank you, and thank you to everyone online.